Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. So I just posted a video reminding people of all the horrible things Doug Ford has done and is responsible for. In it, I use a lot of graphics, primarily of news article headlines, which I reference on screen without reading. To assist people with visual impairments, in this video, I'm reading out all the graphics in order of appearance, so you can search for more information on an article if you like. At the time of recording, all articles were available online and not paywalled, except for the Globe and Mail one, but it was a really important headline to keep included in this, so it's there. And the serfs covered it, so if you want to actually know what is in the article, you can check out the serfs. It's about Fox News and how Ontario sponsored an interview with Sean Hannity, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump. Please go out and vote. You don't need to wait until February 27th. You can go to your electoral office anytime during business hours to vote. If you need assistance, contact your electoral office or local party associations. You don't need a voting card, you just need photo ID. To find out which candidate has the best chance of beating the Conservative in your riding, go to smartvoting.ca. City News. Dozens of long-term care residents reportedly died of neglect during COVID-19 first wave. Part of this article is attached in the image because I wanted to highlight the part where it says, at Downsview, 65 residents died of COVID, but the documents revealed another 26 died from dehydration before military teams arrived. CBC. Doug Ford government spent $231 million to scrap green energy projects. PCs had said canceling wind turbine projects in Prince Edward County would not cost taxpayers. CBC. Ontario's new license plates virtually unreadable at night, police officer says. Did anyone consult with police? Kingston officer asked. Government says it did. Global News. 25 new upgraded Ontario open for business signs to cost more than $106K. The Narwhal. Ontario's Highway 413 to move ahead without federal review. Again. As the federal government deals with a political crisis, it has quietly turned down a request to re-examine Ontario's controversial Highway 413 project. CBC. Highway 413 work could start before Indigenous consultations end, prompting concerns. Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation concerned about wildlife along route of Highway 413. CTV News. Ontario provides funding for equine riding businesses impacted by COVID-19. Horses, not people. CBC. Backlash grows after Ford's move to grant Charles McVety Religious College University status. Government legislation would empower Canada Christian College to award arts and science degrees. City News. Charles McVety's Canada Christian College will not be granted university status. Ontario's Post-Secondary Education and Quality Assessment Board, PEQAB, has recommended the bid be denied, and the government say they have accepted that. Very, very noble of the government to accept that denial. City News. What is Bill 124 and how is it affecting Ontario's nurses, public sector workers? Nurses rallied Tuesday against Bill 124, which limits wage increases for public sector workers, including nurses, to a maximum of 1% for 3 years. They actually misspelled which. It's missing the H. Not that I should say anything. I'm a horrible speller myself. CBC. Ontario cancels curriculum rewrite that would boost Indigenous content. Doug Ford government denies it ordered the move. Keep in mind, Doug Ford tends to deny a lot of things he's responsible for, so take that with a huge grain of salt. And it's also kind of funny how often he has to deny things that are really horrible that his government is doing. So either his people working under him are doing all this stuff without his knowledge, so he's not too plugged in, or this is just him saying after the fact, oh yeah, sure, no, I didn't know this was happening, wink wink. CBC, Doug Ford should apologize to reporter, mayoral opponents say. Warning, graphic language. Ford denies, yet again, reports he called Toronto Star's Jennifer Pag... 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 Pag I'm horrible with names. I apologize for that. But he called her a little bitch. Again, he denies it, but as I pointed out in the main video, there's actually a video recording of it. CBC. Ford rejects calls to apologize after comparing Horvath's criticism to nails on a chalkboard. It's like listening to nails on a chalkboard, listening to you, opposition leader told. That is, that was sexist of him. Just saying. There was a lot of denials at the time, but, you know, that was. CBC, Doug Ford looking into why actors were hired as PC supporters at Ontario Leaders Debate. We don't need to pay anyone, Progressive Conservative leader told reporters. Sure, we didn't we didn't do that. More denials. CBC, Ford government ditched basic income pilot project before any data landed, researcher says. $50 million a year project was to provide money to 4,000 low-income Ontarians for 3 years. CBC, Universal Basic Income Program could cut poverty up to 40%, budget watchdog. PBO estimates most of the costs could be recouped by cutting other social supports. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I'm personally, I like universal basic income, but you know, there's criteria there that should be met still. CTV News. Ford defends bill that critics say shields long-term care homes from lawsuits. City News. Military deployment in long-term care homes called traumatic, report says. CBC. 2 long-term care operators got $157 million in COVID-19 aid. They also paid $74 million to shareholders. Extendicare Incorporated and Sienna Senior Living Incorporated say public money spent on COVID-19 efforts. Not dividends, of course not. No, never. Just on the COVID-19 efforts. Wink, wink. I should probably say wink, wink, and wink at the same time as opposed to after. Anyway, CBC. Emails shed light on fury over Mike Harris's 2021 Order of Ontario appointment. Emails obtained by CBC News suggest not everyone happy with ex-premier getting the honor. Yeah, the ex-premier that really tanked this province. Like that was the beginning of the tanking of this province was under that premier. It's just, yeah. Seriously, if Mike Harris can get the Order of Ontario appointment, then I should be getting the Nobel Peace Prize for the Doug Ford video I just made. Global News. Doug Ford reverting Ontario back to 1998 sex ed curriculum is dangerous for kids, experts say. I just want to acknowledge that in my video, the main video about Doug Ford, I did say 1989 on all of my takes, even though I had it written out as 1998. Yay, dyslexia. So please forgive that mistake in the main video if you're watched the main video and you're also watching this one. Press progress. Doug Ford's sex ed snitch line lets anyone file fake and anonymous complaints against teachers. Ontario's biggest teachers' federations say data collected by Doug Ford's sex ed snitch line is utterly meaningless. Press progress. Doug Ford's budget includes a hidden $1.3 billion decrease in education funding. Ontario schools likely on track for a $12.3 billion shortfall over the next decade. CBC. Ontario is using the notwithstanding clause to stop a school strike. Here's what it is and how it works. It's a horrible piece of thing that should be taken out of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I'm just saying that the notwithstanding clause shouldn't exist. Anyway, the little subheading there. Ford government invoked clause in legislation tabled Monday. City News. Pattern emerging of Ontario PC candidates not showing up to local debates. A pattern of progressive conservative no-shows at local provincial election debates, Cynthia Mulligan unearths a high-level PC strategy. Opponents are calling it anti-democratic. Or is it smart political strategy? And not so smart. CBC. In rural Ontario, where healthcare is hurting, voters decry PC candidates missing debates. Issue of access driving questions at public forums that PCs aren't there to answer. And this is from the current election going on right now. The other one was from the previous one. This is from the current one. A tweet from Greg MacEtch. A tweet from somebody on Twitter. A sign of how the debate went. Ford, who was set to be at the final scrum, has apparently left without taking questions. Reporters have been planning to ask him about his comments about Sparky, among other things. And it's attached to a CBC News article saying Ford under attack during first debate with Ontario Majority Party leaders. Tweet from Sean O'Shea, Global News. Debate is over. We've just been informed that PC leader Doug Ford is declining to answer reporters' questions in the scheduled scrums. He did the same thing after the Northern debates Friday. All other leaders will take questions. And he's quote-tweeting himself saying, "Smiles before the daggers fly. Ontario leaders debate you can watch on Global Now. My report at 11 on TV." I also covered part of that on my channel that you can go check out. CBC. Doug Ford's Buck a Beer plan made beer prices in Ontario go up, experts say. Jordan St. John says the price for a 24-bottle case has gone up about 10%. Global News. Ford moves to speed up alcohol sales expansion to cost Ontario $612 million. Report. Yeah, that was just to, get alcohol out to stores a year early. Yeah, that was just for getting it out 1 year early. HuffPost. Doug Ford's plan to end rent control is a flashback to 20 years ago, when Mike Harris was premier of this province. Mike Harris gutted rent control to disastrous results. Now Ontario premier plans to do the same. A snippet from a Google search for average rent price in Ontario. As of February 2025, the average monthly rent in Ontario varies by unit type and ranges from $1,572 for a studio to $2,713 for a 3-bedroom apartment. Average rent by unit type: studio, $1,572 per month for 413 square feet. 1 bedroom, $1,943 per month for 630 square feet. 2 bedroom, $2,336 per month for 871 square feet. 3 bedroom, $2,713 per month for 1,099 square feet. CBC. Advocates decry Ontario's budget failure to boost ODSP OW. Ontario work rates haven't increased since 2018. ODSP is set to go up by inflationary rates. Of course, that's not like the real inflation. It's just, the inflation that rich people like to quote. Press progress. Doug Ford passes vindictive gerrymandering law aimed at rigging Toronto's 2018 municipal election. Even Doug Ford's closest allies say the Premier of Ontario is redrawing boundaries to settle old scores with his political rivals. Global News. Ford government passes law to remove Ontario bike lanes, frustrate future installations. CBC. Ford doubles down on refusal to allow fourplexes province-wide. Allowing fourplexes, as of right, is a condition of new federal housing infrastructure fund. CBC. Ford government to introduce housing legislation immediately after the municipal election, ministry. Confirmation comes after Toronto Star reports Premier will override municipal zoning for more housing. CBC. Ford government used MZOs 17 times more than previous 20 years in Ontario, AG report. Auditor General says process of issuing ministerial zoning orders needs an overhaul. I'd say. CTV News. Detrimental impacts. Ontario announces closure of 10 supervised drug consumption sites. Global news. Didn't talk to us in advance. Ontario supervised consumption site surprised by shutdown. CBC. Experts did not recommend closing Leslieville drug consumption site. Consumption treatment services are a necessary public health service, says report commissioned by the province. CTV News. Faith leaders urge province to reverse deadly decision to close 10 supervised drug consumption sites. And a bit from that article. Close to 250 faith leaders from across Ontario are pleading with the provincial government to reconsider its deadly decision to shutter 10 of its 17 supervised drug consumption sites by March 2025 and create legislation that would prevent any new locations from opening. CBC. Ontario supervised consumption site law violates charter, group says in legal challenge. Social Services Agency argues law infringes on right to life, liberty, and security of person. CP24. Many deaths predicted from Ontario's plan to shut supervised consumption sites, experts data. CTV News. Ontario PCs under fire after sending out fake invoices in attempt to secure donations. Press progress. Auditor General releases damning report detailing how Doug Ford's government mismanaged COVID-19 response. COVID-19 response hampered by lack of readiness, underfunding, understaffing, poor safety standards, and bad decision-making. Toronto Star. Province accused of violating charter with inequitable vaccine rollout. Global News. Coronavirus. Doug Ford visited cottage despite pleas for Ontario residents to stay home. City News. Ford admits to snowmobiling at cottage while Ottawa under siege. I think you're missing a was. While Ottawa was under siege should be in the title, but the was is missing. Blog TO. You can rent Doug Ford's family cottage in Ontario on Airbnb. And it shows a really nice picture of a cottage, like just one room of this cottage. That is probably bigger than my apartment. CBC. What's really behind the Ford government's push to pave protected wetland in Pickering? Rival developer competing to host Canada's biggest retail warehouse, which sources say is for Amazon. CBC. Province inks $100 million deal with Starlink to internet internet to 15K homes and businesses in Northern Ontario. The province will cover equipment and installation fees for the service. Global News. Must Starlink deal with Ontario government back on hours after threat to rip it up? Bay Today. Doug Ford will keep an eye on Ontario's deal with Elon Musk's Starlink amid tariff threat. The Ontario Liberals have been calling on Ford to cancel the deal with destructive man-child Musk. And a little bit from the article. He also defended the deal itself, which raised eyebrows when announced shortly after the U.S. election in November. It breaks down to $6,667 per connection, and recipients will have to pay monthly fees, while Starlink kits retail for about $500. City News. Ford Government Service Ontario move to Staples will cost $11.7 million, exceeding initial estimate, FAO. CBC. 9 privately run Service Ontario outlets moving to Staples stores, province says. Liberals call on Ontario's fiscal watchdog to analyze sole source contract to big box stores. City News. Ford apologizes to Indigenous MPP after accusing Mamakwa of jumping vaccine line. Accused of racism, colonialism, and oppression, Doug Ford apologizes for remarks he made in the legislature. Christina Howrun on why Sol Mamakwa says the apology shouldn't be directed at him, but all Indigenous people. And a little bit from the article, Premier Ford has quietly apologized to Indigenous NDP MPP Sol Mamakwa after he accused him of jumping the line to get vaccinated in a northern Indigenous community. CBC. MPPs hike housing allowance by 20% as Toronto rental rates jump. MPPs say they have been subsidizing housing costs due to soaring rents in Toronto. I wonder why those rents are soaring. And if, they need a hike of 20% to get to $2,300 a month to cover the cost of living, then how the fuck do they expect people on ODSP and OW to cover the cost of housing? Sorry, this part really irks me. CBC, a staggering 80,000 people and more were homeless in Ontario last year, new report finds. AMO says the groundbreaking report is believed to be the most accurate province-wide picture to date. So from Wikipedia, list of population centers in Ontario, and it's an image of the table of the rankings from highest population center to lowest, and 80,000 would be between Peter Pearl and Belleville. And that is if there was the extra population center of the tent encampments added to it, it would make it 299 entries on this table. But without it, it's 298. CBC, Ford pledges tough new legislation to dismantle homeless encampments. 12 Ontario mayors asked Ford to use notwithstanding clause to override 2023 court decision. And if you watch my channel, you know they asked that because in a video, Doug Ford says to the mayors, "Why don't you ask me to use the notwithstanding clause?" CP24, enough is enough. Doug Ford says Ontario could hand encampment drug users $10,000 fines in prison. That's so compassionate of him. $10,000 fines for unhoused people because they have nowhere else to go. CBC, RCMP investigating Ontario government's plan to open Greenbelt land for development. Ford government says it will fully cooperate with police investigation. Press Progress. Doug Ford made a secret backroom deal to sell big chunk of Toronto's Greenbelt to developers. I wish I could say it's my idea, but it was their idea as well, Ford told Ontario PC Gathering. A tweet from Isaac McAllen. New. I think it was pretty clear. I said what I said, and then I wasn't, and then I went ahead and did it. But in saying that, I apologized to the people. Doug Ford on the Greenbelt. That and other memorable debate quotes can be found on, I guess, Global News website. And yeah, that was from the debate when he was asked about the Greenbelt scandal. CBC. Doug Ford government halts police oversight reforms. Changes to Special Investigation Unit passed in Ontario legislature were about to take effect. A tweet from the Police Association of Ontario. The Police Association of Ontario and the Ontario Provincial Police Association are proud to stand behind Premier Doug Ford as he continues to prioritize public safety and the well-being of our members. Yeah, try saying that to all the people in long-term care homes who died during COVID. And then just goes on to list all the things that they like to pretend to say that Doug Ford is actually good on, which he isn't. And a tweet from the Toronto Police Association, an important message from the Toronto Police Association about the provincial election. And on that tweet was a video that was a few minutes long, just of some douchebag saying how much he, loves licking Doug Ford's boot. Is that like secondhand licking? Because Doug Ford does a lot of licking of other people's boots. So is this like a boot licking chain that's going on with these conservatives? CBC, Ontario spending $134 million on 5 new police helicopters. Helicopters to be used in Toronto, Ottawa, Durham, Halton, and Peel. Well, it's a good thing crime doesn't happen outside of that area at all. CBC, Ontario Place redevelopment not fair, transparent, or accountable, Auditor General finds. Scathing report released Tuesday found Ontario Place costs ballooned by more than $1.8 billion. Village report. Shameful. Ontario Place protesters mourn displaced animal after trees removed. Protesters gathered outside Toronto Region Board of Trade Wednesday morning to call for an end to the Ontario Place redevelopment. CP24. Province promises 1,600 dedicated parking spots for Therm Spa at Ontario Place, says the lease. City News. Group claims Ontario Place redevelopment will use millions of taxpayer dollars for new spa. The advocacy organization Ontario Place for All has released details of an audit of the mega spa plan for the site. Melissa Duggan speaks to Ontario Green Party leader Mike Schreiner about the data, along with other provincial political news. The Architects newspaper. Save the Science Centre. Public outrage continues over Science Centre demolition plans. CBC. How much of Ontario Science Centre roof is at risk of collapsing? See for yourself. Engineering reports show no more than 6% of roof panels were labeled high risk. A tweet from Colin DeMello from Global News. After days of heavy snow, we get an aerial view of the roof of Ontario Science Centre, which was closed last year over concerns about the structural integrity of the roof. The Progressive Conservatives said last year the building, which is more than 50 years old, is at risk of potential roof panel failures due to snow load as early as this winter. In the picture in the video, it's just fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just fine. Canadian architect. Cost of Ontario Science Centre temporary location exceeds cost of roof repairs. The time required to set up temporary locations will mean there is no Science Centre location for 2 years. The RFP also reveals that a new Science Centre at Ontario Place would not be ready until 2030 to 2034. So we're losing that landmark. We're losing that attraction. We're losing that place where families could go for quality bonding time and kids go on school trips and all that sort of stuff. CTV News. More than 50 workers to be laid off from Ontario Science Centre, union says. CTV News. About 85% of Toronto District School Board schools are below state of good repair, FAO report finds. CBC. About 40% of schools in Waterloo Region need repairs, Ontario's financial watchdog says. Waterloo Region's Public School Board says the data does not reflect current state of schools. Canada's National Observer. Ford's latest election promise is a $60 billion tunnel. Transit experts aren't happy. CBC. Doug Ford's 401 tunnel vision could come with a nearly $100 billion price tag, experts say. Ford defends the plan for a tunnel, calls PCs a party of visionaries. CBC, 2024 worst year in Ontario for ER closures, CBC analysis finds. 1 out of every 5 hospitals with an ER or urgent care centre had unplanned shutdowns. CBC. No ambulances available in Toronto 1,200 times last year, report finds. Mayor says council will 100% look into Auditor General's report on Toronto paramedic services. CBC. We're seeing a Hunger Games across Ontario. Hundreds in this town line up for a chance at a family doctor. People in Walkerton showed up to register after word went out Dr. Mitchell Curry was taking patients. CBC. Number of Ontarians without family doctor reaches 2.5 million, college says. Increase of more than 160,000 since last count 6 months ago. CBC. Ontario expands pharmacists' prescription powers to ease burden on doctors' walk-in clinics. 6 more ailments added to the list pharmacists can prescribe treatment for. A tweet from Michael Hurley. 2.5 million without a family doctor. 250,000 waiting for surgery, 50,000 waiting for long-term care, 3,500 long-term care beds built of 15,000 promise, 1,850 on stretchers in hospital hallways, 100 billion tunnel to distract us from all of this. And it has a picture of somebody on a stretcher in the hallway of a hospital. City News. Estimated 11,000 Ontarians died waiting for surgery scans in past year. CBC. Doug Ford's joke about sending overflow patients to vet draws ire. This is Doug Ford's let them eat cake moment, says Ontario Liberal health critic. Yeah, that would be nice. It'd be nice if anything Doug Ford said would actually, set him back at all. That people would actually, care about anything insensitive he says. CBC, Ontario strikes down Doug Ford's mandatory anti-carbon tax gas pump stickers. Pump stickers an attempt to legislate private retailers to stick it to another government or party ruling. This is a snippet from Doug Ford's Wikipedia page. Debt. While Doug Ford promised a balanced budget in 2018, the Ontario debt has increased by $86 billion since Ford took office as of December 2024. This is an increase much greater than his predecessor, whose budget Ford criticized. At the same time, Ontario's high income taxes have been called uncompetitive by critics, with some also highlighting unnecessary spending by the government. CTV News. Ontario passes healthcare bill allowing private clinics to conduct more surgeries. Open Council. Doug Ford says he's a big Republican at U.S. business conference. Global News. Before tariffs, Ford said he was 100% happy Trump won U.S. election in hot mic comments. City News. Ford government allocating $21 billion less to fund healthcare. Hospital capacity to shrink. FAO. The Financial Accountability Officer report finds the government's current plan won't keep up with the growing and aging population, and if billions aren't spent, the healthcare system could be in an even worse situation in 5 years. CBC. Ontario spent highest ever amount on government ads, auditor says. Ontario spent $103.5 million on government advertising in last fiscal year, report. If I had just a fraction of the money he spends on bullshit endeavors, I'd have enough money I could actually be a politician. CBC. Ontario launches multi-million-dollar U.S. ad campaign amid Trump's tariff threats. Campaign will run through the holidays with expanded placements in the new year. The Globe and Mail. So this is the one article I have that's behind a paywall, but I think the headline says it all, and I watched the surfs go over it, and yeah, it confirms everything the headline says. Ontario government sponsors Sean Hannity's show on Fox News for Trump and Musk interview. Global News. Cost of Doug Ford's cabinet parliamentary assistance exceeds $10 million. City News. Premier Ford unveils largest cabinet in Ontario's history. The Ford government's new cabinet is the largest in Ontario's history, with 36 ministers now at the table. As Tina Yazdani reports, critics are accusing the premier of giving more MPPs a raise. Global News. His own gravy train. Cost of staffing Doug Ford's office more than double Kathleen Wynne's. CTV News. Ontario may soon count student residents as homes to reach housing goal. CTV News. Ontario Premier Doug Ford refuses to apologize for comments about immigration. CBC. Ford suggests immigrants to blame for shooting at Jewish school. Comments meant to stress that there is more that unites than divides. Premier. Global News. Different this time, critics say. Ford's get off your ASS remarks are an escalation. Press Progress. Doug Ford criticized for out-of-touch comments comparing Ontario Works recipients to lazy youths watching the Flintstone cartoons at home. Ontario PC leader says unemployed workers sit on the couch and watch the Flintstones instead of looking for jobs. Global News. Ontario food banks cannot keep up as usage reaches 8-year high. Now Magazine. More than 1 in 10 Torontonians now rely on food banks. 2024 saw highest number of visits ever recorded, report. CBC. Orangeville, Ontario rallies as food bank usage jumps 143%. We take care of one another, says mayor organizing food donation competition she hopes to make annual. Global News. Premier Doug Ford denies defaming Hamilton Centre MPP Sarah Jama. Tweet from Doug Ford's Twitter account. This is going to be uncensored, so content warning. As Premier, I'm doing what Marat Stiles won't. I'm calling on Sarah Jama to resign immediately as a member of provincial parliament. And it's attached, he has an image attached to it, which is his official statement. Sarah Jama has long and well-documented history of anti-Semitism. Marat Stiles and the Ontario NDP have proven time and time again that they tolerate these hateful views and actions by keeping Ms. Jama on their caucus. Nearly 24 hours after Ms. Jama's disturbing statements, Ms. Stiles has yet to hold Ms. Jama accountable for publicly supporting the rape and murder of innocent Jewish people. As Premier, I'm doing what Ms. Stiles won't, and calling on Sarah Jama to resign immediately as a member of provincial parliament. Her views do not represent Ontario, they have no place in the legislature, and they have no place in this province. And just to be clear, Sarah Jama never said that or implied that. CP24. Forward on home invaders who kill innocent people. I send 'em right to Sparky. Progressive Conservative leader Ford made the comments to the London Police Service Gala during the first night of the election campaign. Global news. Ontario scraps license plate sticker renewal fees, offers refunds from March 2020 onward. Global news. Ontario $200 checks begin arriving, including some addressed to the deceased. I also shared a pie graph of share of eligible voters. So it shows that 57% did not vote, 18% voted Conservative, 10% voted Liberals, 10% voted NDP, and 5% voted Other. So those were all the article images I shared in that video. I hope you found this helpful if you weren't able to read them on screen. Please help support my content by becoming a patron. You can also just like, subscribe, send out this video to as many people as possible to just get more people aware. Now is our chance to kick Doug Ford out of office. And for the sake of the lives of the people in this province, we need to do that. You can also come to my channel on February 27th to see live coverage of the results of the election. Salut, à la prochaine! Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.